can get a photo. I think it's just sorry, I didn't realise.
I love a round table, I've got to say.
So, is that
Yeah?
right?
I love it. And they always are round. Love it.
Yeah, they're very round.
Yeah.
They probably take extra care to bring the round tables to this. Because it'd be awkward. Hey, digital round table, let's get you on this rectangular.
Yeah, it'd be weird if it was like a long dining room. You'd just be like, no, wait.
No, this isn't right.
Screaming at you.
Well, I thought it was going to be on Skype the first time I read it.
That's what I thought. It was like digital
like
round
digital
table. So I was like,
computer or
oh, is this going to be via satellite? Are they going to be on a screen? And we're going to be like, hey guys, the webcam. Like,
Sorry, it's breaking up. We can't.
Yeah, like every Skype interview ever,
Yeah,
it breaks up at least once.
I can't see you. I can't see you.
Never, right?
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you?
They just freeze.
Oh wait, the Wi-Fi just went. What?
That's it.
So now, what was your favorite thing about? It's like, wait, go back.
It's so awkward telling someone that the last 5 minutes you heard nothing.
Yeah,
You're going to have to say all that again.
Have you been doing Skype interviews like for the Maze Runner yet, or?
No, none of those, no.
Oh, is this like the first
This is the...
first ones?
The first press.
Are they?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Oh,
I think so.
no, well, wait.
Yeah, sure.
You
Sorry.
did a
toast?
bit yesterday,
For
didn't you?
Skype or...
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
the...
Are we talking about Skype? I'm
Just
sorry. Tell us not my fault. I'm absolutely knackered. Because, dude, I've just seen you. What are you doing?
No.
You're right.
Yeah,
Good
not
to
bad,
see you.
not bad.
How are things?
Feels good.
I just clocked your... I got my
yeah,
and I
yeah.
noticed stuff like that. I'm so sorry. Which is
My claim to fame.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, claim
That's
to
awesome.
fame. Alright.
I can't even say hi. I'm just like...
I was going to
sorry.
give you your time to introduce
I'm
everyone. and I
so
was like,
sorry,
well,
yeah. And then
nah,
I'm just...
good.
I'm saying this.
Are we going to
Sorry.
like do names, or are we just going to go?
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, sorry, what's your name?
I'm Will and I play Galley.
So okay, my name is PJ.
I'm Kat.
Charlie.
Christian.
Cameron.
Lauren.
Cool. Dylan.
Yeah.
His name is Cool.
We'll call you Cool now.
Dylan.
You guys seem awfully tired.
Yeah.
No. Have you been like doing loads of press yet, or just the first
Oh,
time
just-
interviews?
They were showing Dylan London, I'm sure.
This is like a...
Have you done that yet? You
Not
should.
Really? No.
Not properly.
Like.
Yeah.
Properly. Oh, we gotta do something
I
tonight.
took it to like a dive bar.
Yeah, that was fun. That was cool. And I mean that I consider that doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to go
That's
do.
what
Anyway.
That
That's
is
awesome.
London,
That's
really.
probably
Perfect.
Really. There's
Yeah.
this bar in Bethnal Green that's called Satan's Whiskers. It's beautiful. It's got like stuffed animals as decorations and just like the head of a dog on a wall for no reason,
Oh,
and like
wow.
interestingly named cocktails.
Interesting one for pet lovers. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I think you should check it out. Satan's Whiskers. It's just down the road from Bethnal Green Station.
It's a funny sense of humor.
Sounds crazy.
The owner of that place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Have it done. So now
Should we start? Yeah.
What do you
Should we
guys
start?
really wanna
Questions?
talk
We
about?
should, we should do that.
Go for it.
We should talk about the films.
Yeah. That's something.
All right.
Take it away.
I'll go. Okay, so the three of you really carry this movie. You know, because the growing mystery of the maze really leaves us more questions than answers. Like, we get to the end and we don't really find anything out, and what we do find out kind of sounds like a lie. So, you know, like, it's kind of like, what is going on here? And Thomas is the catalyst to what appears as an endless cycle for the Gladers. Dylan, how did you approach a character who has no memories of who he was?
Well, it's interesting to play that because you can sort of. My favorite thing about it was like discovering. The audience is able to watch a character now just rediscover who he is basically and discover things that he never even knew about himself before in his previous life because he can't remember. And I love that Thomas. You know, he starts out as the newbie, as the greenie, and the audience kind of experiences that through his perspective, obviously, and then learns as he goes. And then to watch him, you know, sort of discover these leadership qualities, these heroic qualities that he has, you know, I think is a really cool thing. And the way you approach it, I mean, I guess just honestly, as honest as you can, really, because that's, I think, that's the only place you're coming from in that sort of situation. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about your growth as an actor? Because, you know, you went from
Not good,
YouTuber
not
to
great.
leading man.
But like, you know,
Oh,
I'm
come
still working
on.
on it.
Nah, I think you've grown, like, immensely
Thanks.
in a very short span of time, and like your talent is like. So
Thank you.
like how How do you feel taking on such a big project?
I felt really comfortable. You know, from day one, I loved the script, I loved the story, and I thought it could be really something cool and interesting and original, you know, sort of in a generation of kind of regurgitated projects and sequels and stuff like that. And so I'm proud to be part of it. From that standpoint, the first thing I saw, too, was that, you know, these guys were attached to it, and Kaya as well, and Amel as well, but I wasn't aware of Amel's work at the time. And those three, that was a huge thing. Like I was like, those are three really strong actors. I like that. That's awesome. And then meeting Wes and seeing his whole vision for the film, you know, and so it was just sort of easy to feel comfortable, and I just felt so comfortable with the cast surrounding me. Like everyone was so good, you know, at what they were doing and what they were bringing to the table that I was confident. You know, the only thing I guess you could say is I was just trying to keep up, really. Like, you know, that was my hope at the end of the day, that I could do them justice and do the story justice and do Wes justice. And, you know, yeah, I don't know. Thank you, though, for saying all that stuff. That's really sweet of you. And makes me feel,
no problem.
Makes me feel better.
I'm just like watching you grow, like from like the first time and Teen Wolf, and just like the work you've done on that, and just, you know, capturing the attention of the audience through comedy, but then like taking it through like really dark stuff, and then you know, just
thanks.
Good job.
That's seriously, I really appreciate that. That's really cool. That's awesome. Thanks.
Somebody else go.
Are you like doing cons this year in terms of promoting this, and then obviously Teen Wolf? You're gonna be back in the UK.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I honestly, it's like it's like I'm strapped to a lead. They take me places.
You just get told where to film.
Yeah. You know, we did Comic-Con. That was great. It was like we got a first little taste of you know, getting to see the fans' response and showing them like a little screening. You know.
What was the fan response to that? Anybody?
Overwhelmingly
It's
positive.
at WonderCon too, right?
Oh yeah, and we did
The
WonderCon.
first time we saw a trailer on the big screen,
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
like,
It was really cool to see, man. They were just very they loved it. Like, you know, there's no other words, and sort of they were, you know, it's kind of the people you hope at least love it, because they're the diehard fans of the book, and they came out to see the screen.
Did you read the books before? I mean, any of you read the books?
I read half of the first one before we started, but then I stopped. And then I finished them afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be too busy shooting them.
Right, yeah. That's so cool you understand. I feel like sometimes I feel like such a...
you know, how books work.
Yeah. I hope we do. We'll probably make it around to more cons and stuff, and, you know, hope to take it everywhere we can, or whoever wants to have us there.
I imagine there'll be a huge, like, groundswell of, you know, people going to see the first one, though, which will lead to lots and lots of, you know, screenings and lots and lots of cons for the other two.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
Big releases, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Question for Thomas? Yeah, you've been very quiet, just quiet. Like, looking back through your filmography, you played a huge range of characters. Like, everyone from, like, Paul McCartney to young Hitler, you played at one point, and then you voiced Ferb as well. What was it like playing Newt during this film? What are the differences? What are the different challenges in portraying a different character like this?
The same with any character that comes along, really. I mean, the fun thing, I think, about what we all do is that we get to mess around playing all sorts of different people that really existed, people that exist in a book, or already have fans that have a specific idea of who they are, and you have to kind of work with that, or people that you can take a completely fresh look at. So sometimes it takes a little bit of juggling of all of that, but that's part of the fun, really. Newt, I know, all I was told is that he was kind of the nice guy in the film. He still had an English accent, and he had a bit of a limp. Just played around with that, really.
You made Mel crack up. It's good stuff.
Could I ask Thomas, my colleagues at Flickering Myth really wanted to know whether you would take the role of Link in a Legend of Zelda movie.
Does this come from Wes?
Sorry?
Does this come from Wes?
Yeah, Wes said the same thing for me.
Yeah? Perhaps you should get Wes onto that.
This is a rumour that has been floating
I swear
around.
he started that rumour. Because he mentioned doing it ages
Stirring away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never actually played a Zelda game.
Neither have I.
First time for everything.
And I had an N64, and it was on N64? Yeah.
Yeah.
I never played it. But
What did you got in
yeah,
N64?
GoldenEye, Mario Kart.
Nice.
Ooh, GoldenEye.
Classic.
Sorry.
Can't
Really
respect.
good game.
Fun, but I played a bit of that. But Mario Kart, GoldenEye, they're my favourites.
GoldenEye.
Bit Turok 2. It's easy
Mm.
Eagle.
Conquer's bad for a day.
Oh.
Yeah.
That game is the-
Diddy Kong Racing.
We should just talk about N64 games. All
Oh my god, I could go all
Yeah. We're done with this maze run, I think.
You guys good, right? Good enough? Okay, so, Taki.
Mind if I take
Yeah,
it?
go.
My question's for Will. In terms of contrast, how did you feel from going your hilarious role in We're the Millers to this much more serious role? How did you feel?
Yeah, man. I feel so lucky to have got the chance to do this because, I think for me it was something slightly different, and I suppose a bit of a contrast when I compare them. But yeah, I just love actors. The actors I kind of admire and stuff. For those guys who just do a mix of stuff and kind of have versatility. And I'm not saying I necessarily have that, but that's kind of what I aspire to. And just keep people guessing and try and pick a role that's kind of different from the one before and hopefully the one after, if all goes well.
Sounds good. Had you read any of the books before being cast or auditioned?
So I think, like Dill, I kind of started and I slightly freaked out when I got halfway through because I started reading it and I kind of I was kind of freaking out because there wasn't kind of total synergy between my character and the script and in the book. I mean, enough that fans are going to be happy about it. And I think that's one of the greatest things about this movie, that it's adapted very well and the best loved features have been translated perfectly.
Yeah.
But from an acting perspective, it was tricky, and like often on set we were having conversations and we'd be like, oh yeah, because doesn't your character have that thing? And then you'd be like, oh no, that was in the book, or that was, or we're now confusing something that's happened in the script that we don't need to worry about. So, I actually stopped and then finished it afterwards. So, now read Scorch Trials too, which is pretty freaking dope.
So it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's gonna be cool. Knock on it. Let's hope that we shoot it.
I have a question for Will too. Gally cares a lot about Glader traditions. He's very attached to the environment, to protecting the Glader community. Do you think he had a hand in creating some of these traditions? What sort of person do you see him as? Because he's very, sort of family oriented in a way.
Yeah, I think in light of the fact that he was kind of one of the first boys up, so as I understand it, it was George, Albie, Newt, and then myself, roughly, I think. So with that in mind, I feel like naturally he was part of kind of building that hierarchy and building something like physically, given that he's a builder and that's his role. I also kind of see him as some sort of like me, and it's one of the kind of few things that I identify with Gally. I hope there aren't too many similarities, but one of the few things I identify in Gally is this kind of almost kind of like OCD quality about him. He's kind of pedantic and he really likes order and he finds comfort in order and in hierarchy and in the following of rules. So I think he would have been an enforcer of that in many ways and would have wanted some of the more established Gladers to actually follow along with him. Kind of like and I think he's got a power struggle thing. I think he struggles with the fact that Newt's senior to him and Albie is senior to him and so I think certainly when Albie falls away, he kind of sees an opportunity to maybe kind of like leap over Newt and do away with Dylan and kind of set up his own revolt. That's why that kind of happens. But yeah, to answer your question, I think he would have been involved in that. But a lot of that comes from fear as well. He's ultimately a coward, and he likes that. He likes having that kind of protective bubble because he knows that one day, probably inevitably, they're going to have to, leave their little oasis and venture into that maze.
What was shooting those scenes like between your two characters, Newt and Gally? Because I mean, there's so much tension, and you're talking about the power struggle there. When it kind of boils over, when you've got people, it gets to quite a very dark place, or it could go there. What was it like shooting that and keeping that tension ramped up?
I think it's tension, but I think there's both a mutual respect between one another. I think I very much respect Gally's opinion, and hear Newt. He likes to hear what everyone has to say. I think he's a very, very open person, and he sees everyone for who they are and how they can be best fitted into this establishment that we have going. he kind of sees people and how they can help and how he can help, and so I don't think he completely shuns Galloway. I just think he appreciates that he does have a different way of dealing with things and a different viewpoint on things. I think as things progress and he goes a bit nuts and starts revolting, just kind of just like this guy.
Just takes off.
He's the lead in the film. He'll be right.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
I think if you're going to put it in political terms, which, by the way, just as a fun fact, I'm shit with politics. I don't know why I'm doing this, but you guys are kind of more democratic. You know what I mean, and kind of consider everybody's views, and I think you kind of strive for a bit more sort of a collaborative, running of the Glade, whereas I kind of feel that once there's a threat to the idea of staying in the Glade forever, then I kind of become this kind of dictator in a way. I kind of tell people this is what's going on now, and we kind of lead that kind of revolt situation. So kind of, and like Wes always said, two sides
of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin, which is a really kind of good.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to describe our relationship.
Yeah, and our relationship is really fun in this film because there are a couple of occasions where it really nearly kicks off, and it there's serious tension. Let's do this. Hold me back. And that was really fun too.
What was the first scene that you shot between the three of you? Or
What was our first?
Because first scenes were always
well, that first day was me and Chris in the mud, and then we come out and do.
Was the stuff in the box? Was it stuff? Was it people coming up in the box? Was it you coming up in the box?
That was the first week, I think, right?
But not the first day.
No, because I remember them still struggling to get the box finished. The mechanism.
Yeah.
So we shot.
Yeah, the doors were broken on the first day.
Yeah.
It's,
did anyone ever get did anyone ever get locked into the box?
No.
No, that'd be crazy. Well, actually, you say that.
Thank God.
We did a pickup where the grievers are running through the Glade right towards the kind of end of the film, and it's me and a couple of guys who of my builders.
Yeah.
And there was a box, and then there was a moment where we kind of got the shot and we heard them kind of taking down the camera, and we were like, we're still in the cage, fellas. And it was quite an uncomfortable period when we were there. But the actual box, no one got stuck in.
Yeah,
I'll just call it method
That would
acting.
have been. There you go. Yeah, staying in there.
Following on from that, was there any other humorous stories that, as a group, you can share with us what happened on set?
Many, none that we can share. No, I don't know. We can pick some. It was we had
so much good.
It was like summer camp. It was like being away with summer camp with 10 of your best friends. In a way, in a large way.
Hilarious stories, guys.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
tell us. Stop us if they're too funny. I think they were. Yeah.
The airsoft guns in the hotel.
Yeah.
That's just one of my favorite memories
We all
ever.
got BB guns.
We all went to Target one day.
We decided to go out and get an M16.
Which was, by the way, fun fact, the size of that sofa. I mean, it was the biggest gun I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And without telling us, when we split off into teams, we're all messing around with our pistols over, and Dylan just comes out of the hallway, looking like a drug-free Scarface. Just absolutely about just sprayed the hallway. I was like, I would have got about 16 in my bag. I think from that alone. And it was a good prank. I mean, to keep it, did you have it under the bed or under
It was so tough because it was so hard for me to keep from telling anybody. And so then there was slowly but surely at one point Thomas came into my room and I was just like, all right, I gotta show you something. And I told him that I went. I brought this gun. I'm like, don't tell anyone. I'm gonna whip it out when we play tonight. And then Alex knocks on the door and I was like, all right, come here.
And they had to be on his team for that.
I was like, okay, you guys just seriously stop telling everybody. So then we had to put ourselves on one team and somehow have you guys be the other team. You and Chris, I think it only ended up being, and then poor Alex went on your team.
Alex had to be on the team.
Had knowing I had the gun, and he was just like, it'll be fine, just go. And so then we just whipped it out and did it. And the security guard literally came up at one point, and this was the sweetest. He comes up, and we were feeling terrible because it's 2 a.m. and we're in our hotel running around playing with our airsoft guns, which we we basically were the only ones in the hotel, so it's always fine. But the security guard comes up because there's some sort of complaint that happened, and he's like, And we immediately are like, you know, we're in trouble, like, we're sorry. But he was just like, y'all rehearsing, that's okay. Just try to keep it down. How long y'all supposed to be doing this for? And we're just like, another hour or so.
He was so kind. He was like, I can organize like a place
He's
where
like,
y'all can do
yeah,
this.
you guys need
Yeah.
a conference room?
Yeah.
We're like, no, this is better for the, you know, for the scenes. He walks
Like
away,
15 of us
and
in
we
a
just
conference
go like behind him. We just go like, okay, so let's take it from the top, and then we felt too bad.
Then I'm pretending like we were rehearsing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were some great memory. I love the airsoft games.
How did you manage to sneak a gun that big into the hotel?
It's Baton Rouge. I think if I went to the bank with that gun, like people would just be like, "Oh wow, nice one, you got the
smuggled
cojones. Wow, check it. Yeah, it's got some good firepower."
Worryingly.
Wow.
Yeah, when they have machine guns, like full automatic weapons at Walmart, you know. I think the hotel doesn't even notice you bringing in a BB gun.
I
Yeah,
guess
crazy
that's
country, man.
That's a cultural divide right there, because like that kind of thing wouldn't happen here.
Yes, I know, because that is a very sane thing. I cannot believe. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Absolutely insane.
I imagine he's going to be pretty pissed when he sees the film.
They had no
There are no
guns.
guns in this thing. Yeah. Found a bunch of sticks.
Oh no, he was so sweet. That's awesome. That was so fun to talk about.
I've got one.
Sure.
How do you find it, like, having to interact with, because, like, your location was really cool. I mean, the Glade was awesome, like, with cuts and stuff, but there was a lot that was CGI. Like, how did you find that, like, playing to, like, a guy in a green morph suit? Or...
Well, first of all, whenever we had to do things like that, you know, Wes is so animated when he, like, talks you through things, and when he describes, like, what's out there, that it's almost like, it almost makes you crack up. But it's just, it helps a lot. He's so detailed. Like, he has this weird way of just being like, and it's coming out, you know, and you understand what's happening exactly. Like, and then also that we just had such a great balance of having real worlds that we were really, you know, shooting in. Like the Glade, like you said, that, you know, they built that entire thing, and geographically in the film, like what you see, that's exactly, nothing's cheated or anything. That's the world that we shot in every day, and we actually had the doors, you know, the threshold going into the maze. We actually had the box in the ground. They built a tree house. They grew a cornfield. Like, it felt very, very real. And then the visual effects is just sort of the icing on the cake, you know. And so I think that was really important in West for us to have like a real environment to feel like we were a part of and actually in and sort of could disappear into. And he was just, you know, planning on taking care of the visual effects at the end. And he also has a really, like, again, you know, great way of articulating sort of what it's going to be too, what he plans on adding to it, and he can sort of paint that picture for you, and actually literally paint a picture for you. Like, he can draw a sketch really quick, and you'll be like, wow, okay, that's incredible. That's what it's going to look like. Okay, sweet.
Yeah, so I was impressed with the blades.
Oh my god, yeah. Those are my favorite things.
Yeah, and then you do that run, like, it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
That was
I would
literally,
just get smacked in the
that was
face.
literally like, we were in a parking lot on the side of a highway in Louisiana. We had a blue screen, like, along the wall, and we had these blue poles with, like, orange pluses on them. And me and Ki-Hong were just running on the blue poles, and then I just cut through one of them, and, like, he turned it into that. Like, the guy is mad genius.
He is like a visionary. You know, people use the word genius and visionary lightly, that they actually genuinely apply to Wes Ball, and like we feel really lucky that we get to work with him at this stage of his career, so that we can be the guys who said, you know, we worked with Wes Ball on his first feature film.
He's gonna be around.
It's generally how we feel.
And a gifted filmmaker and storyteller as well, which is a brilliant combination.
That's the crazy thing.
Is he signed on to direct the next films?
As long as they don't steal.
We don't want to lose him. Yeah, like,
I
I feel like everyone's gonna be, you know. Hopefully, yeah. He's very, you know, he's so passionate about it. I would be surprised if he didn't want to, you know. It's his baby, like, almost, in a way, you know. He's adopted it as his baby. Up for adoption. All right.
Right, guys, sorry to stop you there, but did you want to get a photo on your...
Yeah, I'll do it for the group, yeah. One sec.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
story.
fun, thank you.
Yeah, this was a blast. This round, I haven't been at this fun on a round table in a while.
Can we?
Apparently I just can't take it all these
Yeah.
faces on
Yeah.
extinction.
How long
So
have you
it's
been
crazy.
doing
So,
Yeah, I imagine you've seen like loads of videos.
what's that? Sorry,
You've been doing it for 2 months or something, going rounds?
the round. No, well, we've done like 2 days of press today. So including yesterday, and then we start like a kind of like a month's tour now. But we've done we did another thing like 2 months ago. We did another kind of situation. Yeah, that was the first jump because we had a
Okay, let's get
while
going.
ago.
Oh, yes, we did.
Yeah, and then.
Like ice cream together.
Yeah, put one in if you.
Yeah, I'll do one as well.
Yeah, 2, 3. Thank
Alright,
you.
that's it.
Anyone else want to
Yeah.
You need one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Of the
about my
group,
camera.
just first, and then obviously I'll
Sure.
do the others.
You do it like a
Always wonder if people go silent for fun.
hands around.
Right, yeah.
It's like
Oh, you're not starting yet.
My hand was clear.
Do you guys mind if I take a picture with you?
No?
That'd be cool.
I said something in the interview yesterday.
Yeah, of course, do it.
Oh, God, I'm gonna wait. Okay,
And then it would get to a point where, and I talked about how, like, we all unanimously like agree that we've never been. It's the only time.
Hey,
how you doing?
Very good. How are you? You
When
guys
we
are
started
so
asking, like,
tall.
looking for it, you know.
Why are you so tall? I feel very tiny. Thank you.
last one, sorry.
It's
Thank you so much. Thank you. You were so seriously.
I've met most of the team of girls.
Oh, you met
Yeah, I've met. With the exception of
There's an entire
Rosie.
Tumblr dedicated
Like,
to
you have it
it.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
really want to meet him,
Oh.
but like, I just, your work, you're so good. You're just so
Sorry, I'm freaking out.
good.
Yeah, just take a couple. Just hit them. Cheers.
Nice.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
Is everyone happy? Good. Like, one more?
One
And then you guys all stay in here. You stay in here. I've got bring in some food so you can have a quick bite, and then your words will come and. Alright. So if you just like some coke or some sandwiches.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Like,
And
Rolling.
I really like these days.
1, 2, 3. Right. Okay.
That's a nice conversation.
And mate, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Taking it because no, it's not like that.
Great.
It's literally sat down. Like, whenever there's like a lot of people, I'm like taking it around.
Best of luck with everything.
I get a bit nervous in these situations. I'm sorry, man. As soon as I saw you, I was like, holy shit.
Thanks.
Is it going alright though?
everything's going well. I'm annoyed because I've got theories to film it.
Oh, dude, I always enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Nice. Sorry, we have to take Julio away.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we'll go away. But dude, good to see you. I'll see you in Chisholm.
Yeah.
Alright.
Catch you up.
Take care, guys. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Life is all complete.
Yeah, but now we get food, which is even better.
Awesome.
Because Lord knows I'm hungry.
Whoever got food, well done. Because they shut me down. They were like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still recording.
Did it clear it?